Well, there were many times when Debbie and I were raising our 8 children that we didn't see how we were going to make it financially. We were just like most other families in our church family, that there were lean times and there were times that were better times for us. But there were those many times that we just didn't really see how we were going to make it financially. You know, no matter how long we were married, there was always a need for more money than what we had. Through it all, we kept our commitment to always give at least a tithe, which a tithe is 1/10 of our income to our local church. In fact, I can't remember a year since I came to Western Hills when we have not given more than a tithe of our income to bless and to support our church family, and just to demonstrate our trust in God. So, how did we make it? Well, several important things happened. One is we learned to be content with what we had. That was a very important lesson that we learned. And then 2, we learned to wait on God rather than just going to the bank to get what we needed. And we learned how to stay out of debt. And then 3, we learned that you cannot outgive God. And then 4, we learned to expect God to provide for our needs. On August the 16th, 2012, I wrote my children a letter about how God provided for our needs and at times even provided for our wants. I want to share this letter with you, and I hope it will be a great encouragement to you. Well, the letter began like this, that I wrote on August 16, 2012. Dear children, it says, I want to share with you how God has graciously provided for the needs of our family on a preacher's salary. And the story of how God provided for our needs actually begins long before I became a preacher. My dad had saved about $4,500 for me to go to college. And this was a lot of money for college back in 1973. But I wanted to go to Oklahoma Baptist University and train to be a minister. And it was very expensive compared to the state schools. $4,500 was not enough for 4 years of college at a private school like OBU. I did have one scholarship that would pay for half of my tuition each semester. But there was still the other half of the tuition plus room and board. Well, I decided to try and make the varsity basketball team. And children, you've heard my story many times. I made the team and I was given a scholarship that paid for my tuition, my room, and board for the next 4 years. So when your mom and I married, I still had about $3,000 in my college fund. And that $3,000 is what your mom and I used to get married and start our lives together. After I graduated from college and married your mom, I went to seminary in Fort Worth, Texas. And I toiled there for 4 long years to receive my master's degree in divinity, which is just another word for theology. And at that time, to get this degree, you had to earn 96 hours of credit. Your mom was teaching school and her starting salary was around $12,000 a year, and I worked part-time for minimum wage. Our first home was a duplex, and we paid $150 a month for rent and for all of our utility bills. We owned one car that your mom owned when we married. We didn't have a bed when we married, so we slept on the floor on a pad that your mom made for us. You know, my father died a few months after I started seminary and just a few months after we married, and he left me an inheritance of about $15,000 plus a car plus some furniture. And part of that furniture was a bed which we were very grateful to receive. That inheritance was God's provision that got us through many rough times over the next 4 years, and the addition of our first child, your older brother, Josh. Josh was born 11 months after we were married. The last year of seminary, we worked at a children's home. We were house parents to 12 boys, and our salary was around $1,000 a month plus room and board. Because of God's provision, we just never missed a meal. We never had to borrow for any of our needs to pay any bill. We were much better off than most seminary students during those 4 years because we actually had a savings account. This gave us tremendous freedom that most seminary students and their families did not have. We should have had about $9,000 of my inheritance from my dad when I graduated from seminary, but I squandered it on investing in 2 oil wells that never produced oil. And so due to my bad investments, when I graduated from seminary, we were broke. I could not find a job in the ministry, so we moved to Waco, Texas, and I continued my education at Baylor University. Your mom taught school and her salary was about $13,000 a year. I worked part-time for Baylor and became the pastor of a small country church that paid me $100 a week. And I also worked part-time at the school and made about $200 a month. We bought a house there in Waco, and our house payment was $262.44. And because we didn't have any savings account, we did not have as much freedom as we did when we were in seminary. But we still did not have to borrow to pay our bills. God faithfully provided, and I did the best I could to save money from our paychecks for things like car repairs and repairs to the house. After 1 year in Waco, I was hired to be the youth minister at First Baptist Church of Yukon, Oklahoma. My salary was $25,000 a year. And your mom at that time worked part-time for the church for the first year and made minimum wage. We rented a house, and our house payment was $550 a month plus utilities. But we could not sell the house in Waco, and we had trouble renting it. And so most months we also had to pay the $262.44 for the Waco house along with our house payment in Yukon. Well, during our time in Yukon, we had Zach, and he was born at Mercy Hospital. And we didn't have any insurance at that time, and we didn't have the money for his birth, so it looked like we were going to have to borrow to cover the debt. Well, we prayed for God to provide, and God blessed us through our landlord who owned the house we were renting in Yukon. And he asked me one day if we had insurance to cover the hospital expenses. When I told him, no, we didn't have insurance, he told me not to pay our rent on our house until the full hospital bill was paid. The bill was about $3,000. For 6 months, we didn't pay rent and applied it to the hospital bill. And this is how God provided for our needs when we were in Yukon, Oklahoma. We did not have any health insurance after your mom quit teaching because we did not think we could afford it. We eventually joined a Christian organization in which the members helped one another with their medical bills. Your mom resorted to learning about home remedies since we were hesitant to spend a lot of money going to the doctor. I have no idea if any of those home remedies worked, but we seemed to recover just as fast or faster than other families that were going to the doctor all the time. Your mom eventually stopped working outside the home when she was carrying Zach and when we lived in Yukon. But she was always trying to help out by starting a home business. And normally her expenses for the business were greater than what she made, but I appreciated her efforts, and she seemed to enjoy each and every challenge. Well, after 2 years as a youth minister in Yukon, I was hired to be the pastor at Western Hills. It was 1984, and my starting salary at Western Hills was $25,000 a year, and we were able to live in the parsonage owned by the church, so we did not have any rent. Now, when we come back together next week, I want to share with you how God continued to provide for our needs after we came to Western Hills. But I want to challenge you through this story to trust God. Trust God for what you need in your life, and demonstrate that faith and trust in Him by giving according to His Word, giving to your church family, blessing others, and then being diligent in prayer as you pray for your needs.